Hello, welcome to week 7 of my 12-week design challenge. This week, I decided to dive into making this corset. So while making this video, I was watching a lot of videos on how to make corsets, and a lot of videos on YouTube focus on recreating historical garments. So just at the beginning of this video, I want to clarify that this is not that. I'm not recreating any historical garments. I'm not trying to do an accurate representation. My goal with this project and all the projects I've done throughout this 12-week challenge is just to understand the process of how a garment goes from an initial idea to a final concept. With pattern making, what I'm most interested in is how the shape of the pattern plus the materials that you use plus the body that it gets put onto creates a particular silhouette. And corsetry in particular is really interesting and it's captured my attention because there's so much structure to play with. Corsetry is a lot different to the other garments that I've made so far because it's all structure. You're using a stable fabric, stable materials, and boning, as opposed to considering stretch factors, elastic tension, and stitch tension on your machine. So it's a pretty different beast, and I'm really enjoying the process of understanding how a garment like this comes together. What you do have to think about in corsetry in particular is how the lack of stretch that you're working with affects the body and where compression happens. So if done correctly, this is apparently supposed to be a very comfortable garment and not the torture device that the media loves to villainize. So before we get into it, I just want to share with you a corset maker that I was particularly inspired by, that I've been particularly inspired by for many years, but my love for this artist has been rekindled while doing research for the project that I'm currently working on. So this is Royal Black Couture Corsetry, and these designs really blow my mind. I'll just let you enjoy them for yourself. So this is kind of the idea of what I'll be making today. And what I find particularly inspiring about this is where you can go from this basic garment, all the potential different shapes and silhouettes and materials and colors and designs that you can play with, starting with a basic idea like this one. I have made one corset before a couple of years ago, and I started with this Pinup Girls pattern, the Freedom corset. And although the instructions do tell you to start with measuring your body and then blending the sizes of the corset to the corresponding measurements of your full bust, underbust, waist, and hips, I decided to just go with a straight size since it was the first corset I was ever making. I just wanted to kind of see how it came together. And it came out okay. It's a wearable garment. I'll share the fit with you here. So it's not bad at all. The gap in the back should be narrower. It should only be about 2 inches. I only had these gigantic grommets to work with, so that's what I used. And then you can see the upper back is a little bit wider than the lower back. I would need to add to all the pattern pieces a little bit, and then a little bit more at the upper back to make this garment fit. But what I decided to do instead was draft a garment from scratch because I feel like you learn the most about pattern drafting when you do it this way. So I started with taking my measurements, and then I went into Clo and I tried to get the avatar as close as possible to the measurements of my body. One notable difference is that I'm already adding waist reduction to the avatar. I found that soft body doesn't work as accurately as I would like it to, especially for simulating compression. So my avatar is built with the wearing shape of the garment or the reduction amount applied that the corset is meant to give. So the main difference is that I've reduced the waist of the avatar by 6 centimeters or around just over 2 inches, which is what I expect the reduction of the corset to be. So then I started with drafting an overbust corset based on Sofia's lessons, and the overbust corset ended up being a bit of a disaster, and I decided I would come back to that later and just focus on drafting the underbust. And for this one, I didn't have time this week to digitize my materials. And since compared to other designs I've made, the placement of the material doesn't matter as much to the overall effect of the design, I just decided to omit digitizing the materials. The material that I used in Clo is the muslin material, which I don't think is as stiff as coutil, but it gets the job done. And then I never really refined this as a 3D render as well. I did bring in my busk just to make sure that the placement and dimensions of it were correct, but I didn't spend too much time on refining the 3D model of this. I just really wanted to get into the sewing and constructing the final garment. So for Christmas a couple years ago, I asked for materials to make a corset, and I was gifted these materials by my mother-in-law. Thank you, Rosemary. I always feel a little bit intimidated by the fabric because I feel like when it's so beautiful, my design really needs to do it justice. So for the construction of this corset, I used just the one layer of coutil with no lining, and I covered the seams with bone casing that I made from the coutil. I also made binding from the coutil, which was a mistake for two reasons. First, the coutil is way too thick to get really neat corners from, and I also made the binding too narrow, which made it impossible to get neat corners on my corset. That's just an area for improvement next time. Now it's time for our favorite part of the video. Well, it's my favorite anyways, where I get to shut up and we all get to just enjoy a nice build montage of creating this garment. And here is how the corset turned out. I think it's so lovely. It's such a neat and tidy garment. And here's the fit reveal. It came out really good, especially for it being the first time having drafted based on my measurements. I have a nice even gap in the back, and overall it's not too tight. It's a little bit, so you can see me pulling at the upper part here. I'm gonna add a little bit of fabric at the top. I'm gonna add a little bit at the hips down here as well. It's just a little bit tight there. And I also need to shorten the height just under the bust, probably by 1.5 centimeters. It's just a touch long there. And then that'll help the corset to get a more of a hourglass shape. And then I thought it'd be interesting to look at my silhouette without a corset underneath. So here I am just wearing my plain old tank with jeans. And then here is like how I would style the corset if I were to wear it. So the tank with jeans with the corset on. I could have tied it a little bit tighter in the back there. And here it is paired with a leather jacket. So I do want to make more corsets in the future. I'm going to design them in Clo so that I know what materials that I need to order. I do want to try spiral steel boning. All of this was made with synthetic whalebone. So I want to try spiral steel and then also flat steel for the front and the back of the corset. So I have a lot of ideas for designs I want to play with. I want to do hip gussets in a future corset. I definitely want to refine the overbust corset shape. Sophia's already helped me a little bit out with that. So all that being said, thank you for being here. Thank you, Sofia, so much for helping me out with this garment. And thank you for all the help, all the future help you're going to give me as well. I appreciate you all, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.
Goodbye. Make sure to like and subscribe, please.